Zizhi Tongjian, Chronicles of Zhou, 1. This video stays true to the original text, featuring readings in both classical and vernacular Chinese or English. This is the first volume of the Zhou Dynasty Chronicles. It chronicles a period of history starting from the year of Wu Yin and concluding in the year of Renzi, spanning a grand total of 35 years. In the 23rd year of King Wei of Zhou, the year of Wu Yin, 403 BC, the Zhou monarch for the first time officially commanded that the three senior officials of the state of Jin Wei-si, Shaoji, and Hong Qian be recognized as formal feudal lords. Your servant Sima Guan says, I have heard that among the duties of the Son of Heaven, none is greater than the maintenance of ritual. In ritual, nothing is more important than the preservation of status, and in status, nothing is more vital than the correctness of titles. What is meant by ritual? It refers to the fundamental laws and guiding principles of the state. What is meant by status? It refers to the clear relationship between the monarch and his subjects. What is meant by titles? It refers to the strict hierarchy of ranks such as duke, marquis, minister, and senior official. Within the vast expanse of the four seas and among the myriad millions of common people, everyone is subject to the rule and authority of a single individual. Even those possessed of peerless physical strength or world-transcending wisdom dare not refuse to hasten to their duties and serve. Is this not precisely because ritual serves as the fundamental guiding principle of society? Therefore, the Son of Heaven commands the three excellencies, who in turn lead the various feudal lords. These lords govern the ministers and officials, who then manage the scholars and the common people. The noble use their status to oversee the lowly, while the lowly use their position to serve and support the noble. The way superiors direct subordinates is like the heart and trunk driving the movement of limbs, or the roots and stem controlling the branches and leaves. It is natural and effortless. The way subordinates serve superiors is like the limbs instinctively guarding the heart and torso, or the branches and leaves providing shade and protection for the roots. It is a natural instinct of interdependence. Only in this way can the upper and lower classes preserve each other, leading to long-term peace and stability for the nation. Thus it is said, of all the duties of the Son of Heaven, none is greater than the maintenance of ritual. When King Wan of Zhou arranged the sequence of the hexagrams in the I Ching, he deliberately placed the Qian hexagram, symbolizing heaven, and the Kun hexagram, symbolizing earth, at the very beginning. Confucius commented in the appended remarks, heaven is high and noble, earth is low and humble, thus the positions of Qian and Kun are determined. As the low and high are displayed, the ranks of noble and lowly are established. This means that the distinction in status between the monarch and the subject is just like the positions of heaven and earth. It is absolutely unchangeable and must not be reversed. The classic spring and autumn annals suppresses the overly powerful feudal lords and upholds the waning Zhou royal house. Even if a messenger from the Zhou court is of low status, he is ranked above the lords of great states in historical records. From this, we can see that the sages maintained an extremely cautious, sincere, and ever-mindful attitude toward the hierarchical relationship between monarch and subject. Unless there exists a tyrant as extremely brutal as Jie of Xia or Shou of Shang, and a sage king as profoundly benevolent as Tang of Shang or Wu of Shou, such that all people sincerely flock to him and heaven itself bestows its mandate upon him. Otherwise, regarding the status between monarch and subject, the subject should steadfastly maintain his integrity and be willing to face death to uphold it, and that is all. Therefore, if micro-son, Weizi, had replaced the tyrannical Zhou of Shang, then the founder Tang would have continued to be paired with heaven in sacrifices. If Ji Shao had reigned as the monarch of Wu, then the founder Taibo would have enjoyed continued ancestral offerings. However, these two individuals preferred to let their states face ruin rather than commit such an act, truly because they understood that the great principles of ritual must never be thrown into disorder. Thus it is said, in ritual, nothing is greater than status. You must understand that this magnificent and sacred ritual acts like an infallible golden ruler, clearly distinguishing the strict boundaries between the noble and the lowly, and meticulously arranging the closeness and distance of bloodlines. It majestically arbitrates the belonging of all myriad things in the world and methodically manages the complex affairs under heaven that are as numerous as stars. Without those resplendent and shining titles, the ritual could not manifest its dazzling brilliance. Without those solemn and majestic ceremonial vessels, the ritual could not materialize into a visible, towering form. by using noble titles to solemnly ordain them and strictly graded ceremonial vessels to clearly distinguish them. Only then can everyone from the lofty monarch above to the humble subjects below be as distinctly boundaried and orderly as a brilliant starry sky. This is the greatest and most fundamental principle of the ritual that sustains the world. If the majestic titles and ceremonial vessels have utterly perished, how could the abstract ritual possibly survive alone in the world like a tree without roots? Recall that in the distant past in the state of Wei, the senior official Zhou Yushi achieved glorious military merits. He arrogantly declined the fertile cities awarded by the ruler, and instead begged for the gorgeous horse ornaments called fenying, which rightfully belonged only to the son of heaven or feudal lords. Upon hearing this, the supreme sage Confucius was deeply heartbroken, believing that rather than violating the rules by granting him this ceremonial item symbolizing supreme power, it would be far better to reward him with several more vast cities. Under all heaven, only these titles and ceremonial vessels representing sacred majesty absolutely cannot be casually lent to any subject. They are the very lifelines of the state that the supreme monarch must grip tightly in his hands. Once the monarch loses control over the titles and authority of the regime, then the entire state of the feudal lords and the fiefs of the officials will follow suit and be utterly destroyed like an avalanche. Recall when the ruler of Wei was anxiously waiting and relying on Confucius to administer the state affairs. Upon taking office, Confucius was not in a hurry to implement new laws but wanted first to rectify and smooth out the chaotic titles. He profoundly believed, if the hierarchy and titles of the state are not upright and legitimate, various government decrees will clash, and the innocent common people under heaven will plunge into extreme panic and bewilderment, not even knowing where to safely place their hands and feet. Look at the fenying on a horse. It is nothing more than an extremely tiny, insignificant ornament. Yet Confucius was incomparably stingy with it and resolutely refused to grant it easily. Rectifying literal titles might appear to be a trivial and minor administrative task, but Confucius treated it as a matter of supreme importance, prioritizing it above all else. This is truly because, once the hierarchical order of titles and ceremonial vessels has completely collapsed into chaos, the lofty monarchs and the bowing officials will no longer have any bottom line or means to protect each other's lives. You must know, among all the monstrous disasters and violent upheavals under heaven, there has never been one that did not quietly originate in an extremely tiny, hidden corner, only to ultimately grow madly and erupt in full view of the public. Those sages endowed with supreme wisdom possess thoughts and foresight deep enough to pierce through time and space. Thus, they are always able to extremely cautiously guard against a disaster when it is but a minuscule hint, and decisively extinguish it. In contrast, mediocre ordinary people have vision as dangerously short-sighted as a mouse, hence, they inevitably and numbly wait until the disaster becomes shockingly massive and utterly uncontrollable before panicking and rushing to extinguish and salvage it. If you govern and resolve a disaster when it is still in its bud, the energy and effort expended will be extremely minimal, yet it will yield massive and extraordinary preventive success. But if you insist on waiting until the disaster fully erupts to salvage the overwhelming chaos, then even if you exhaust and drain all the blood and strength of the entire nation, it will absolutely be too late to reverse the tragic defeat. The sacred and ancient I Ching severely warned, when your feet tread upon the first thin layer of autumn frost, you should abruptly realize that the freezing winter with solid ice capable of freezing rivers is fast approaching. The solemn book of documents also earnestly taught, as the son of heaven, within just a short day or two, one must keenly perceive and handle tens of thousands of extremely minuscule administrative beginnings. These golden words left by the ancient sages are exactly speaking of this profound principle of nipping evil in the bud. Therefore, we arrive at this ironclad conclusion: among all hierarchical boundaries, nothing is more important than the title bestowed by the Son of Heaven. Alas! What a heartbreaking cry of sorrow! Ever since the incompetent King Yu and the tyrannical King Li tragically lost their profound royal virtue, the majestic Zhou dynasty's royal mandate and fortune have declined day by day like the setting sun. The laws and ritual systems that held the world together crumbled and scattered like tangled hemp, despicable subjects arrogantly bullied their noble lords, and the monarch's authority completely decayed. The ambitious feudal lords across the realm dared to launch bloody wars of conquest on their own, and ultimately, even subjects at the level of ministers and officials dared to monopolize and seize the highest state power. The grand framework of that sacred and inviolable ritual system has already tragically lost 7 or 8 out of 10 parts. Yet, miraculously, the state fortune and ancestral sacrifices established by the great King Wan and the heroic King Wu have still managed to stretch on like unbroken silk threads, continuing generation after generation. The fundamental reason for this is probably that the surviving descendants of the Zhou dynasty, amidst the howling storms, were still able to desperately guard their last remaining nominal title and the final boundary of status. What evidence is there to prove this profound principle? In the turbulent past, the hegemon of the world, Duke Wan of Jin, had established earth-shattering and salvaging merits for the precarious Zhou royal house. Relying on this monumental contribution, he arrogantly petitioned King Xiang of Zhou to grant him the privilege of building an underground tomb passage after his death. Yet the usually weak King Xiang was exceptionally resolute and adamantly refused, declaring resoundingly, "This is the sacred institutional regulation exclusively reserved for the Supreme Son of Heaven." There has never been an absurd occurrence under heaven where the heavenly mandate and virtue have not been replaced, yet two sons of heaven coexist simultaneously. This ought to be a highly treasonous act that you, uncle, would also deeply abhor and reject. Were it not for the reverence of this sacred ritual law, with the vast lands and sky-reaching military might you possess, uncle, digging a burial passage yourself would be as easy as flipping your hand. Why then bother to hypocritically come and seek permission from me, a destitute emperor? Hearing this awe-inspiring reprimand, the once imperious Duke Wan of Jin could not help but feel profound dread and reverence, tucking his tail between his legs and never again daring to harbor any presumptuous thoughts of violating or overstepping the emperor's ritual laws. This is a vivid proof of the nuclear-level deterrent power of ritual. Therefore, in that cruel era, merely considering the pitiful territorial size of the Zhou royal house, it was actually no larger than the tiny states of Chao and Ting. Merely considering the pathetic number of Zhou's subjects, it was truly no more populous than the minuscule states of Shu and Zhu. However, even such an unbearably weak royal house miraculously survived several hundred years of bloody and tempestuous times, constantly remaining the orthodox suzerain nominally ruling all under heaven. Even when facing the world-devouring, absolute hegemonic might of the states of Jin, Chu, Qi, and Qin, all these ferocious, wolf-like vassal warlords dared not cross the boundary to apply military force in an attempt to usurp the Zhou throne. What on earth is the unbelievable reason behind this? There is no other reason. It is solely because the highest status of monarch and subject, fragile as window paper, still miraculously existed. It acted like an invisible tightening spell securely binding the ambitious usurpers. As for the subsequent tragic palace coups within various states, such as the arrogant rebellion of the all-powerful Jisun clan in the state of Lu, the sinister and bloody usurpation by Tian Cheng in the state of Qi, the armed insurrection by the untamed Duke Baixing in the state of Chu, and the lawless tyranny of the greedy and brutal Shibo in the state of Jin. The monstrous power and massive military forces possessed by each of these ruthless ambitious men were all more than enough for them to chase away and depose their lawful monarchs like wild dogs, thereby wearing the yellow robe and replacing them. Yet, incredibly, until their final dying breath, they desperately dared not take that ultimate step of open usurpation. Could the reason for this possibly be that their swords and military might were not sharp enough, or that their utterly cruel hearts suddenly harbored a trace of mercy and could not bear to strike the fatal blow? The truth of the matter is actually, deep within, these demon kings were terrified as if fearing ghosts that, should they dare openly usurp the sacred titles and savagely trample the impassable status between monarch and subject, it would inevitably invite all the feudal lords under heaven to raise the banner of righteousness and rise up together to subjugate and execute them like exterminating vicious beasts. But heartbreakingly today, the three senior officials of Jin Wei, Xiao, and Han extremely brutally and arrogantly insulted and imprisoned their lawful monarch, heartlessly slicing open and carving up the magnificent territories of the massive and powerful state of Jin like butchers cutting meat. As the supreme guardian of the world's order, the son of heaven of Zhou was not only so incompetent that he could not dispatch an army to subjugate and punish these treasonous thieves, but he even shamelessly bestowed favor upon them, granting them legitimate ranks and salaries, allowing them to grandly sit alongside the orthodox and lawful feudal lords of the realm. This utterly absurd behavior equates to the fact that the very last, fragile trace of hierarchical status left by the ancestors could no longer be desperately defended, but was instead entirely and thoroughly discarded and destroyed by his own hands like throwing away trash. The sacred ritual system painstakingly established by the great ancient kings was entirely and utterly obliterated to ashes at this very moment, under this one absurd edict. Perhaps some people in later generations might argue and excuse this, thinking, in that cruel era of great chaos, the pitiful Zhou royal house was already extremely decayed and frail, whereas the forces of the three rebellious Jin families were at their zenith and exceedingly domineering. Even if the emperor vehemently wanted to refuse their investiture in his heart, facing a deadly situation with swords at his throat, how could it possibly be achievable not to compromise? This seemingly reasonable exculpatory thought is absolutely and completely wrong. Just imagine, although the three rebellious Jin families possessed unmatched military might, if they truly acted like outlaws, showing zero fear for the world's outrage and armed crusades, and dared openly to offend morality and savagely trample the sacred ritual system, then they would have long ago scorned bowing to ask permission from the helpless Zhou emperor. They would have just directly established their own states and crowned themselves as feudal lords. If they audaciously established their own states and claimed titles without seeking the formal investiture from the Son of Heaven, then in terms of jurisprudence, they would instantly degenerate into treasonous, utterly mad usurpers whom everyone has the right to execute. In this vast world, if ever in the future a righteous hegemon like Duke Huan of Qi or Duke Wan of Jin, who honored the king and expelled barbarians, were to emerge, they would inevitably hold high the sacred ritual and moral banner of the Zhou dynasty, legitimately deploying troops to unleash endless fury and ruthlessly subjugate and annihilate them. But in today's irredeemable abyss, they hypocritically went to petition the Son of Heaven of Zhou, and as a result, the spineless emperor actually fully consented and approved them. In jurisprudence, this equates to them legally receiving the sacred edict from the supreme leader, thereby openly whitewashing themselves into orthodox feudal lords guarding the domains. Since they possessed the amulet issued personally by the emperor, who else in this world could possibly have the qualifications and legal justification to raise an army to condemn and crusade against them? Therefore, I deliver this history-shattering ultimate verdict. The reason the three rebellious families of Wei, Shao, and Han could usurp the power of the state and grandly list themselves among the legitimate feudal lords of the realm, the chief culprit was absolutely not that these treasonous subjects had the ability to thoroughly destroy and overthrow the ritual. Rather, it was precisely the supreme guardian himself, the Son of Heaven of Zhou, who dug the nation's grave with his own hands and personally corrupted the very bottom line of the sacred ritual system that held the world together. Alas! What a profound and lingering sigh, filled with boundless sorrow and helplessness. Once the sacred rituals that maintained the divine order between monarch and subject were utterly destroyed, everyone under heaven began to ruthlessly rely on mere cunning and brute force to compete for dominance. Consequently, the feudal states ruled by the descendants of ancient sages all drifted toward total annihilation during the turmoil, with their ancestral altars abandoned and their nations vanishing into thin air. The lives of countless innocent commoners were almost entirely ground down and extinguished by the cruel fires of war. Is such a bloody human tragedy not the most sorrowful thing of all? Initially, Shi Xuanzi, the head of the Shi clan, planned to appoint Shi Yao as his successor. A clansman named Shi Guo advised, in my view, it would be better to appoint Xi Shao than Shi Yao for the stability of the clan. Shi Yao has 5 aspects in which he far exceeds the average person, but there is one fatal flaw that cannot be compensated for. He is handsome and imposingly tall, which is impressive. He excels at archery and chariot driving with immense strength, which is impressive. He possesses a wide array of artistic skills, which is impressive. He has refined prose, eloquence, and exceptional intelligence, which is impressive, and he is firm, resolute, and brave, which is even more impressive. Possessing so many strengths, he nonetheless utterly lacks benevolence. If he uses these 5 superior traits to bully others and acts with a cruel heart, who under heaven could possibly tolerate him? If you truly appoint Shi Yao, the Shi clan will surely perish. Shi Xuanzi refused to listen. To save his own life, Shi Guo actually applied to the grand historian to split from the Shi clan and established a new branch called the Fu clan. Zhou Jianzi, the leader of the Zhou clan, had 2 sons, the elder named Bolu and the younger named Wushu. He planned to establish an heir but wavered between the two, unable to make a decision. Consequently, Zhou Jianzi personally wrote words of instruction and warning on 2 bamboo slabs, handed them to each of his 2 sons, and solemnly commanded, "You must respectfully and carefully memorize every word written here." 3 years later, Zhou Jianzi inquired about the matter. The elder son, Bolo, could not recite the words at all, and when asked for the bamboo slab, he had already lost it. Turning to question Wushu, the boy could recite the text fluently and with great familiarity. When asked for the bamboo slab, he immediately pulled it respectfully from his sleeve and presented it to his father. Thus, Zhou Jianzi concluded that Wushu was the truly capable talent who could carry the hopes of the clan and formally established him as his successor. Zhou Jianzi dispatched in duo to govern the city of Jingyang. Before leaving, Yinduo asked for instructions. Do you wish for me to treat that place as a factory for extracting wealth like silk from cocoons? Or do you want me to build it into a foolproof defensive stronghold? Zhou Jianzi replied decisively, a stronghold, of course. Consequently, upon taking office, Yinduo reduced the reported number of households to effectively lighten the tax burden on the people. Zhou Jianzi spoke earnestly to Wushu. If the state of Jing encounters great turmoil in the future, do not look down on Yinduo because of his status, nor neglect Jinyang because of its distance. That place must be your ultimate refuge. After the death of Shi Xuanzi, Shi Xiangzi, Shi Yao took control of the clan's power. He held a grand banquet at Longtai, inviting Hong Kongzi and Wei Wanzi to drink and enjoy themselves. During the feast, Shi Bo wantonly mocked Hong Kongzi and even publicly insulted his advisor, Duan Gui. Upon hearing this, Shi Guo, another clansman, advised in terror, "My lord, if you do not prepare against retaliation, disaster will surely arrive soon." Shi Bo replied arrogantly, "In this state, who suffers or encounters disaster is decided entirely by me. As long as I do not cause trouble for others, who would have the audacity to provoke me?" Shi Guo replied, "That is not the case. The Book of Documents records, when one person makes repeated errors, does resentment only appear in the open. One must plan against the unseen threats. A truly wise gentleman is always able to handle insignificant matters with prudence, and thus they can avoid encountering great disasters. Now, during a single banquet, you have simultaneously humiliated a ruler and his chief minister, yet you take no precautions and even brazenly claim they wouldn't dare cause trouble. Is that not utterly absurd? Even tiny insects like gnats, ants, bees, and scorpions can harm people, let alone a ruler and a minister who hold the power of a state." However, Shi Yao did not take this to heart at all. The incredibly powerful Shi Bo arrogantly demanded land from Hong Kongzi, who was extremely reluctant and intended to refuse. His advisor Duan Gui hurriedly dissuaded him, saying, "Shi Bo is extremely greedy and obstinate. If we do not give it to him, he will certainly launch a military attack against us. It would be better to simply give it to him. Once he becomes accustomed to the sweet taste of easily extorting land and grows arrogant, he will inevitably demand more from other noble families. If others refuse to yield, he will certainly direct his ruthless military forces to attack them. In this way, our Han family can successfully avoid the devastation of war, and we can quietly wait in a safe corner for the situation in the realm to change." Hong Kongzi suddenly understood and praised repeatedly, "This is a brilliantly excellent idea." Consequently, Hong Kongzi immediately dispatched an envoy to respectfully present a large city with 10,000 households to Shi Bo. Shi Bo was extremely delighted upon receiving the land. Immediately after, the insatiable Shi Bo turned and demanded land from Wei Huanzi. Wei Wanzi was also furious and intended to resolutely refuse. Wei's advisor, Ren Zhang, stepped forward and asked, "For what reason, my lord, are you unwilling to cede the land to him?" Wei Wanzi replied angrily, "He comes to extort land without any reason or excuse, so I will resolutely not give it to him." Ren Zhang analyzed with deep foresight, since Shi Bo is extorting land everywhere without any reason, all the noble lords and officials under heaven will definitely feel deep fear and unease. If we cede the land to him at this moment, Shi Bo will inevitably become even more arrogant and haughty. Once his arrogance reaches its peak, he will inevitably underestimate the heroes of the realm. Meanwhile, those of us who are threatened, out of inner fear, will certainly band together closely. Relying on our united and fiercely motivated elite troops to strike an arrogant madman who underestimates his enemies, the destiny of the Shi family will surely be short-lived. The Book of Shou has left us with this profound philosophy: if you wish to utterly destroy someone, you must temporarily accommodate them and help them inflate endlessly. If you intend to eventually seize everything from them, you must temporarily give to them and satisfy their greed. My lord, it is better for you to cede the land to him to fuel Shi Bo's arrogance, after which we can calmly choose allies among the lords to jointly plot the annihilation of the Shi family. Why would you act on impulse and let our Wei family alone serve as the living target and scapegoat for Shi Bo to assert his dominance?" Hearing this, Wei Wanzi was overjoyed and agreed, "That makes perfect sense." Thus, just like the Han family, he also ceded a large city of 10,000 households to Shi Bo. Shi Bo, pushing his luck, then arrogantly demanded the vast lands of Kai and Goang from Zhou Xiangzi, but Zhou Xiangzi, with extreme backbone, flatly refused to give them up. Furious at being rejected, Zhou immediately assumed the posture of an overlord, leading the elite armored troops of the Han and Wei families to launch a massive and fierce attack on the Zhou family. Seeing that he could not hold them off, Zhou Xiangzi prepared to lead his clan to flee for refuge, looking up to the sky and asking, "The world is vast, but where should I run?" A trusted follower suggested, "The city of Changzi is closest to us, and its walls are built extremely thick and sturdy." Zhou Xiangzi shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "The common people there have already exhausted all their blood, sweat, and physical strength to build that city. If we now force them to risk their lives to defend it to the death for us, who among those people would ever loyally follow me?" The follower then proposed, "Then let us go to the city of Handan. Its granaries and treasuries are extremely full and wealthy." Zhou Xiangzi sighed again. The wealth there was amassed solely by cruelly extracting and scraping the blood, sweat, and fat of the people. If we now bring the flames of war and implicate them in being killed because of us, who there would possibly be willing to follow and protect me? Perhaps going to the city of Jinyang is the only way. That is the very place my late father specifically entrusted to me as a refuge before he died. It is also where Zhou implemented benevolent governance, treated the people generously, and reduced taxes. The people there will undoubtedly stand united with us and share our life and death. Thus, Zhou Xiangzi decisively led his clan to retreat to the city of Jinyang. The allied forces of the three families Shi, Han, and Wei led the nation's army to tightly encircle the city of Jinyang, and crazily diverted river water to violently flood the city. The portion of the city walls not submerged by the massive flood was reduced to less than 6 feet high. The stoves where the commoners cooked were entirely sunk underwater, and innumerable frogs and toads even spawned on the water's surface. Despite reaching such a tragic and dire state, the soldiers and civilians in the city still harbored not the slightest thought of surrender or rebellion. Zhou smugly rode a chariot to inspect the flooding of the city. Wei Wanzi condescended to personally act as his coachman driving the chariot, while Han Kangzi acted submissively as the accompanying bodyguard by his side. Looking at the torrential floodwaters, Zhou laughed arrogantly and said, "Only today do I truly know that immense water can also be used as a lethal weapon to destroy someone else's state." Hearing these spine-chilling words, Wei Wanzi secretly nudged Han Kangzi beside him with his elbow, and Han Kangzi knowingly stepped on Wei Wanzi's instep in return. This was because they suddenly awoke to a terrifying realization. Since water could flood the Zhou family, the surging Feng River nearby could equally be used to flood Wei's capital, Anli, and the rapid Jiang River could just as well be used to flood Han's capital, Pingyang. Zhou's keen advisor, Qi Ci, sharply sensed the crisis and anxiously told Zhou in private, "My lord, the Han and Wei families are absolutely going to rebel and betray us." Zhou, entirely unconcerned, asked in return, "On what grounds do you possibly know that they will rebel?" Qi Ci answered methodically, "I deduce this based on common human nature and logical reasoning. You have forcibly coerced the massive armies of Han and Wei to fiercely attack the Zhou family. Once the Zhou family is utterly exterminated, then, just as lips perishing leads to cold teeth, the massive disaster of war will inevitably fall upon the heads of the Han and Wei families next. Now, we have long agreed that upon defeating and annihilating the Zhou family, the three families will jointly divide their fertile lands. Seeing that the unflooded part of the Jinyang walls is less than 3 boards high, and the conditions inside are so tragic that people and horses are eating each other, the fall and surrender of the city is numbered in days. Yet these two lords, who should be anticipating their spoils, show absolutely no joy on their faces, but instead bear heavy, worried expressions. If this is not secretly plotting a rebellion, then what else could it possibly be?" The very next day, the incomparably foolish Zhou actually leaked the entirety of Qi Ci's highly confidential advice to the Han and Wei lords. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the two lords hurriedly forced a calm demeanor and deceitfully argued, "This is clearly that scandal-mongering, slanderous petty official wanting to secretly act as a lobbyist for the doomed Zhou family. He deliberately wants to make you, our lord, harbor groundless suspicions against our two families, thereby causing us to slacken and become negligent at this perfect moment to fiercely attack the Zhou clan. If this were not the case, would our two families be so foolish as to ignore the massive, imminent benefit of happily dividing the fertile fields of the Zhou family right before our eyes, and instead want to risk clan extermination to undertake such an extremely dangerous, disastrous, and utterly impossible to succeed foolish act of rebellion?" As soon as those two disguised lords walked out of the main tent, Qi Ci immediately rushed in and urgently interrogated, "My lord, Why on earth did you so foolishly leak all of my private, highly confidential advice to those two men? Hearing this, Zhou actually asked back in astonishment, and how do you know that I told them about this? Zizhi answered with agonizing heartache, I just saw with my own eyes that when the two of them walked out, they stared straight at me with eyes full of hostility and defensiveness, and their walking pace was extremely hurried and panicked. I knew immediately it must be because I had completely seen through the true situation of their plot to rebel, and they felt guilty and terrified. However, the obstinate Zhou still stubbornly refused to wake up and repent. The despairing Zizhi, in order to save his own life, had no choice but to helplessly request to be sent as an envoy, fleeing far away to the state of Qi. Zhou Xiangzi dispatched his counselor Zhong Menten to sneak out of the city and meet with the two lords, Hong Kongzi and Wei Huanzi. Zhong Menten said to them, I have heard the saying that if the lips are gone, the teeth will feel the cold. Now Zhou is leading the armies of Han and Wei to attack Shao. If Shao is destroyed, then Han and Wei will surely be his next targets. The two lords replied, in all hearts, we know this is true. However, we fear that before the plan succeeds, the plot will be leaked, and disaster will fall upon us immediately. Zhong Menten said, this plot has come from the mouths of you two lords and entered only my ears. What harm could there be? The two lords then secretly entered into an agreement with Zhong Menten, setting a specific date for action before sending him back. At night, Xiangzi sent men to kill the officials guarding the dike and then breached the embankment to flood Zhi's army. Zhi's army fell into chaos as they struggled against the water. The Han and Wei forces attacked from the flanks like wings, while Xiangzi led his troops to strike from the front, utterly defeating Zhi's host. Subsequently, they killed Zhi and completely exterminated the Xi clan. Only Fu Guo survived. Your servant Sima Guing says, Zhi's downfall was due to his talent surpassing his virtue. Talent and virtue are two different things, yet common people cannot distinguish between them and refer to both as being worthy. This is why they make mistakes in judging people. By talent, we mean keen perception, acute observation, tenacity, and decisiveness. By virtue, we mean being upright, fair, moderate, and harmonious. Talent is the resource of virtue, virtue is the commander of talent. The bamboo of Yunmen is the strongest in the world, yet, without being straightened by heat and pressure, and without being fitted with feathers and knots, it cannot penetrate hard armor. The metal of Tongjian is the sharpest in the world, yet, without being melted and cast in a mold, and without being wetted and polished, it cannot strike down a strong opponent. Therefore, those who possess both perfect talent and perfect virtue are called sages, those who lack both are called fools, those whose virtue exceeds their talent are called gentlemen, and those whose talent exceeds their virtue are called small men. In the art of selecting men, if one cannot find sages or gentlemen, it is better to employ a fool than a small man. Wow. A gentleman uses his talent to do good, while a small man uses his talent to do evil. One who uses talent to do good can achieve the utmost good, one who uses talent to do evil can commit the utmost evil. Though a fool may wish to do wrong, his mind is not sharp enough and his strength is insufficient. He is like a suckling puppy trying to attack a man, people can easily restrain him. A small man's intelligence is enough to fulfill his treachery, and his courage is enough to execute his brutality. He is like a tiger with wings, will the harm he causes not be immense? Virtue is what people revere, while talent is what people love. What is loved is easily embraced, and what is revered is easily distanced. Therefore, those who judge others are often blinded by talent and neglect virtue. Since ancient times, many of the rebellious ministers who disordered states and the profligate sons who ruined families had an excess of talent and a deficiency of virtue, leading to their downfall. Is Zhi the only one? Therefore, if those who govern states and lead families can discern the difference between talent and virtue and prioritize accordingly, why should they worry about making mistakes in choosing people? The three families of Han, Shao, and Wei partitioned the vast territories of the Xi clan. Zhou Xiangzi, harboring a deep-seated hatred for Zhi, went so far as to lacquer Zhi's skull and fashion it into a drinking vessel. Yu Ren, a loyal retainer of Zhi, was determined to avenge his lord. He disguised himself as a convict laborer, concealed a dagger in his clothes, and entered Zhou Xiangzi's palace to plaster the latrines, seeking an opportunity to strike. As Zhou Xiangzi was about to use the latrine, he felt a sudden premonition of danger. He ordered a search, and Yu Reng was subsequently captured. His attendants wanted to kill Yu Reng, but Zhou Xiangzi stopped them, saying, "Shibo is dead and has no heirs, yet this man still wishes to avenge him. He is truly a man of honor. I shall simply take care to avoid him in the future." He then released him. Yu Reng did not give up after being released. He lacquered his body to create sores like a leper and swallowed charcoal to make his voice hoarse and mute. He begged in the marketplace, and even his own wife could not recognize him. On the road, Yu Reng met a friend who recognized him despite his disguise. The friend wept for him and said, "With your talent, if you were to serve Zhou Xiangzi, you would surely win his close favor. Could you not then do as you wish? Wouldn't that be easier? Why must you torment yourself so? Is it not far too difficult to seek revenge in this way?" Yu Reng replied, "If I have already pledged my allegiance as a minister and yet seek to kill my lord, that would be double-heartedness. What I am doing is indeed extremely difficult. But I do this to shame all those in the world and in future generations who serve as ministers yet harbor two hearts." One day when Zhou Xiangzi went out, Yu Reng lay in ambush under a bridge. When Zhou Xiangzi reached the bridge, his horse suddenly bolted. He ordered a search and caught Yu Reng again, and this time he had him executed. Because Zhou Xiangzi's elder brother, Bolo, had been passed over for the succession, he felt a lingering guilt. Although he had 5 sons of his own, he refused to appoint any of them as his heir. Zhou Xiangzi unfettered Bolo's son in Dai, naming him Lord Chong of Dai. Since Lord Chong died young, Zhou Xiangzi designated Lord Chen's son, Zhou Wan, as the heir to the Zhou clan. After Zhou Xiangzi's death, his younger brother Zhou Wanzi usurped the position by expelling Zhou Guan and installing himself as the ruler. However, Wanzi died after only 1 year. The people of the Zhou clan said Wanzi's accession was not the intent of Lord Xiang. They then joined together to kill Wanzi's son, welcomed back Zhou Wan, and installed him as the leader. He became known as Zhou Xianzi. Zhou Xianzi fathered Zhou Ji, who became Marquis Lai. Wei Si was the grandson of Wei Huanzi and became Marquis Wan. Hong Kongzi fathered Hong Wuzi, and Wuzi fathered Hong Qian, who became Marquis Jing. The great ruler Marquis Wan of Wei humbly took the eminent scholars Bu Zixia and Tian Zifeng as his teachers. Whenever his carriage passed by the humble thatched cottage of the hermit Duan Gangmu, he would unfailingly stand up and lean on the crossbar of his carriage to pay his deepest respects. Because of this astonishing sincerity in seeking talent, brilliant scholars from all corners of the world flocked to join him like rivers flowing into the sea. Once, Marquis Wan was having a joyous banquet, drinking and celebrating with his ministers, and the atmosphere was incredibly lively. Suddenly, it began to pour rain. Just as everyone was enjoying the height of the festivities, Marquis Wan unexpectedly ordered his attendants to ready his carriage, preparing to head out into the wild wilderness in the midst of the heavy rain. His perplexed attendants tried to dissuade him, asking, "Today's drinking and merrymaking are so delightful, and the sky is pouring rain. Where on earth are you planning to go in this weather, my lord?" Marquis Wan replied with absolute resolve, "I had previously made a hunting appointment with the forestry official today. Although I am enjoying myself now, how can I simply ignore and break this promised meeting just for my own pleasure?" He then resolutely ventured out into the rain and personally went to inform the official to cancel the hunt. An envoy from the state of Hong came to borrow troops from the state of Wei in order to launch a joint attack against the state of Zhou. Marquis Wan sternly refused, saying, "Our state of Wei and the state of Zhou are like flesh and blood brothers. I absolutely dare not comply with your request to ignite the flames of war." Not long after, the state of Zhou also came to borrow troops from Wei, attempting to annihilate the state of Han. Marquis Wan firmly rejected them using exactly the same reasoning. The envoys from both Han and Zhou felt disrespected and left in a great huff of anger. Shortly thereafter, both Han and Zhou learned through their own intelligence that Marquis Wan had actually been working behind the scenes to mediate for peace and protect them both. The monarchs of both states were deeply ashamed and personally came to pay homage to Wei. Because of this magnanimous and commanding stature, Wei established its position as the absolute leader among the 3 Jin states, and no other feudal lord in the entire realm could rival or compete with Wei. Later, Marquis Wen domineeringly dispatched the great general Yu Yang to attack the state of Songshan. After successfully conquering and annihilating it, he directly granted this vast territory as a fief to his own son, Wei Ji. Beaming with pride, Marquis Wen asked his assembled ministers, "Tell me, what kind of ruler am I?" The ministers unanimously flattered him, crying out, "You are the most benevolent and sagacious monarch in the world." Amidst the chorus of praise, the fiery-tempered minister Renzuo suddenly stepped forward and mercilessly rebuked him to his face. "You have acquired the massive territory of Songshan, yet instead of following protocol to enfeoff your meritorious younger brother, your selfishness led you to give it to your own son. How can you possibly have the audacity to call yourself a benevolent ruler?" Hearing this, Marquis Wen instantly flew into a violent rage, his face turning livid. Seeing his lord's fury, Renzuo had no choice but to quickly step out and leave the court. Suppressing his anger, Marquis Wen turned and asked another senior minister, "Shai Wen, what do you say?" Shai Wen respectfully replied, "You are a peerless and benevolent monarch." Marquis Wen sneered and interrogated, "On what grounds do you so firmly conclude that I am benevolent?" Unhurried and with a resonant voice, Shai Wen answered, "I have heard an ancient proverb, only when the monarch on the throne is as benevolent and broad-minded as the ocean will the ministers below dare to be as straightforward and outspoken as a sharp sword." Just now, Renzuo's words were incredibly harsh and straightforward. "It is precisely because we have such a magnanimous king like you that we have such fiercely upright ministers. That is exactly why I know you are a truly benevolent ruler." Awakening as if from a dream, Marquis Wen's anger turned into great joy. He immediately dispatched Shai Wen to urgently invite Renzuo back. Incredibly, Marquis Wen personally walked down the high steps to welcome him, elevating him to the status of the most honored guest in the court. On another occasion, Marquis Wen was drinking and appreciating elegant court music with his teacher, Tian Zifeng. Showing off his musical taste, Marquis Wen remarked, "Does the sound of these bronze chimes seem a bit uncoordinated? It sounds like the pitch of the chime on the left is slightly too high." Hearing this, Tian Zifeng merely smiled profoundly. Somewhat puzzled, Marquis Wen asked, "Why do you smile, my teacher?" Tian Zifeng replied sternly, "I have heard this profound principle of statecraft. A wise monarch should excel at examining and managing the officials in charge of music, rather than mastering the specific pitches and melodies they produce. Now that you are dedicating so much energy to mastering the minute differences in these musical notes, I deeply fear that you will become entirely deaf when it comes to identifying and managing your officials." Feeling as if he had been awakened by a splash of cold water, Marquis Wen said with wholehearted conviction, "Your criticism is absolutely correct." One day later, Marquis Wen's heir, Wei Ji, was traveling proudly in his carriage when he happened to encounter the great scholar Tian Zifeng on the broad road. Daring not to be disrespectful, Wei Ji quickly stepped down from his luxurious carriage and prostrated himself respectfully on the ground to formally greet Tian Zifeng. To his surprise, Tian Zifeng held his head high and did not offer even the slightest gesture of returning the courtesy. Feeling thoroughly humiliated, Crown Prince Wei Ji instantly flew into a rage. He coldly questioned Tian Zifeng, "In this world, is it those like me who possess boundless wealth and high status who have the right to be arrogant toward others? Or is it poor and lowly scholars like you who have the right to be arrogant toward others?" Showing no fear whatsoever, Tian Zifeng bluntly fired back, "Naturally, it is only we poor and lowly scholars who have the right to be arrogant. How could you wealthy and exalted lords and ministers, who must live in constant apprehension every day, ever dare to show even the slightest bit of arrogance? Think about it. If a supreme monarch acts arrogantly and alienates the people and wise talents, he will entirely lose his state. If a powerful senior minister acts arrogantly and offends the world, he will bring about the utter destruction of his family's fiefdom. You must understand, once a ruined king loses his state, nowhere in the world has anyone ever heard of others continuing to treat and serve him as a monarch, and once a fallen minister loses his fiefdom, no one has ever heard of others continuing to respectfully treat him as a grand lord. However, for poor and lowly scholars like us, it is completely different. If the monarch does not adopt our political proposals and our ways of doing things clash, at worst we simply part ways, put on our worn-out straw sandals, and walk away. The world is so vast, wherever we go, how could we possibly fail to maintain this carefree state of poverty and lowliness?" Hearing these thunderous and profound truths, Crown Prince Wei Ji was overwhelmed with shame and sincerely bowed his head to apologize to Tian Zifeng. Later on, Marquis Wen spoke to the famous reformer Li Ku in the court. Sir, you once uttered a highly perceptive proverb. When a family is in extreme poverty, they desperately long for an exceptionally virtuous and capable wife to manage things. When a nation falls into crisis and chaos, they desperately need a world-class, outstanding prime minister to assist. Now I urgently need to appoint a prime minister, and the choice is either my younger brother Wei Cheng or the senior minister Shai Wang. In your shrewd judgment, which of these two great men is more suitable? Li Ku bowed his head and replied with extreme caution. According to ancient rules, those of lowly status absolutely must not casually discuss the noble, and those who are distant must never interfere in the private affairs of the monarch's close relatives. As an outsider, I have always remained outside the core circle of court power. Faced with such a monumental state secret, I truly dare not accept the command you have issued. Marquis Wen furrowed his brows and said in an unquestionable tone, Sir, the state is now facing a matter of life and death. Please do not be so slick and decline the responsibility. Seeing he could not escape, Li Ku stroked his beard and said profoundly, This is actually entirely because you, my lord, have not observed carefully in daily life. To evaluate a man, observe who he stays close to in his daily life, observe to whom he gives his wealth when he is rich, observe what kind of people he recommends when he achieves high power and success, observe what bottom-line actions he resolutely refuses to take when he is destitute and cornered, and observe what ill-gotten gains he absolutely refuses to take when he is poor and starving. Using these 5 golden rules is completely sufficient to accurately determine who should be prime minister. Why do you need to wait for me, Li Ku, to point it out? Upon hearing these 5 sentences that pierced the fog like lightning, Marquis Wen was instantly enlightened and said with a hearty laugh, Sir, you may return to your quarters to rest in peace. The choice of my prime minister is now completely finalized. After Li Ku exited the royal palace, he happened to meet Shai Wen, who was anxiously waiting for the result outside the gates. Shai Wen rushed forward impatiently and asked, I heard that the Lord urgently summoned you into the palace today to make the final decision on the prime minister. Who on earth was ultimately chosen to take this seat? Li Ku, without evading the question at all, coldly spat out 2 words, Wei Cheng. Hearing this result, Shai Wen instantly turned pale with anger and roared furiously, The peerless General Wu Qi, who guards the most dangerous Shiha defense line for the state and beats the state of Qin to a pulp, was single-handedly discovered and recommended by me. When the Lord was losing sleep over the chaotic governance of the inland city of Yi, it was I who recommended the genius Shimen Bao, who managed Yi to become as solid as an iron fortress. Back when the Lord dreamed of conquering the tough bone that was the state of Zhongshan, it was I who recommended the decisive and ruthless commander Yu Yan. After Zhongshan was conquered and uprooted, and the Lord looked around bewildered, unable to find a top official to garrison that new territory, it was again I who without hesitation recommended you, sir, to take control of the grand situation. Later, when the Lord's precious son could not find a suitable imperial tutor, it was I who painstakingly selected and recommended the profoundly learned Chu Houfu. Based on the earth-shattering ledger of merits that the ears of the world have heard and the eyes of the world have seen, in what conceivable way am I, Shai Wen, inferior to that Wei Cheng who only got ahead by the luck of his birth? Facing Shai Wen's monstrous fury, Li Ku remained extraordinarily calm and asked in return, When you recommended me, Li Ku, to your monarch, was it merely to form cliques and pursue selfish interests within the court, or to seek a higher, more prominent official title for yourself? The monarch earnestly asked me who was most suitable to be prime minister, and I merely objectively and fairly answered with my 5 observations method for evaluating talent. The reason I could decisively conclude that the Lord would inevitably choose Wei Cheng as prime minister is because, although Wei Cheng enjoys an extremely generous salary of 1,000 sheng, he astonishingly spends 9/10 of this massive fortune outside networking with the world's most peerless talents, keeping a mere 10th to maintain his own household's living expenses. It is precisely because of this astonishing boldness in exhausting his family wealth and squandering thousands of gold pieces that he was able to recruit from the east the 3 incredibly famous and influential super scholars for the Wei state, Buzixia, Tianzifang, and Duan Ganmo. Our monarch must extremely respectfully treat the 3 godlike figures recommended by Wei Cheng as his teachers, consulting them daily on the great principles of governing the state. Meanwhile, the 5 people you so proudly recommended, though capable, are at best treated by the Lord merely as subordinate officials and hired hands to be ordered around. Tell me, how can the subordinates you recommended ever be compared to the imperial tutors recommended by Wei Cheng? Hearing this deafeningly profound and masterfully unpeeled analysis, Shai Huan instantly blushed red to the ears and stepped back repeatedly in deep shame. Bending low, he respectfully bowed to Li Ku twice in a row, sighing with complete, heartfelt conviction. I, Shai Huan, am truly a shallow and vulgar man with a vision as narrow as a frog in a well. I truly offended you with my foolish misspoken words just now. From this day forward, I am willing to be your student for the rest of my life, following you to learn the great way. Speaking of the illustrious Wu Qi, he was originally a native of the state of Wei. Harboring great ambitions, he went to serve as an official in the state of Lu, attempting to showcase his earth-shattering talents. When the ferocious army of the state of Qi massively invaded Lu, the ruler and ministers of Lu originally wanted to appoint Wu Qi as the supreme commander. However, because Wu Qi had married a woman from Qi, the people of Lu harbored deep suspicions about him. To obtain this eagerly desired position of general, Wu Qi actually ruthlessly murdered his wedded wife to prove his absolute loyalty, ultimately leading his troops to crush the Qi army to pieces. After the triumphant return, a political enemy went to the Marquis of Lu and slandered him, saying, initially, Wu Qi studied under the great Confucian scholar Zheng Shen. When his biological mother passed away, he actually refused to return to his hometown to attend the funeral for the sake of his studies, which enraged Zheng Shen so much that he severed their master-student relationship completely. Now, to become a great general under your command, he has brutally murdered his own wife who shared his bed. This man Wu Qi is simply an extremely cruel, vicious, and cold-blooded beast with no moral character. Furthermore, with the extremely small and weak national strength of our state of Lu, unexpectedly bearing the terrifying reputation of defeating the powerful enemy of Qi, this will inevitably cause panic and suspicion among the various vassal states of the realm. They will certainly conspire together against the state of Lu. Hearing these malicious rumors, Wu Qi was terrified that the ruler of Lu would condemn and execute him. Having heard that the distant Marquis Wan of Wei was a wise and magnanimous hegemon who thirsted for talent, he fled Lu in a panic overnight to seek refuge and pledge allegiance to him. Unable to make up his mind, Marquis Wan carefully inquired of his senior minister Li Ku about Wu Qi's background. Li Ku pointedly evaluated him. This man Wu Qi is extremely greedy for fame and fortune and is addicted to lust. His morals are terribly flawed. However, when it comes to military strategy and commanding troops, even the legendary ancient military genius Sima Rongjiu could never surpass him. Hearing this evaluation, the highly ambitious Marquis Wan overcame all objections and decisively appointed Wu Qi as his supreme commander. Like a fierce tiger descending a mountain, Wu Qi led the Wei army to fiercely attack the powerful state of Qin to the west, crushing their defenses like splitting bamboo and conquering 5 heavily fortified Qin cities in a row. As the supreme commander of the entire army, Wu Qi surprisingly lowered himself to wear the same shabby clothes and eat the same coarse food as the lowest-ranking common soldiers. When sleeping, he never laid out a soft mat. When marching, he absolutely refused to ride a horse or take a carriage. He even personally carried the heavy military rations on his back, sharing the extreme exhaustion and severe hardships with his soldiers in the mud. Among the troops, there was a common soldier who developed a malignant, foul-smelling festering sore. General Wu Qi, upon seeing this, actually knelt down without the slightest disgust and personally sucked the putrid pus and blood out of the wound with his own mouth. When the soldier's elderly mother in her hometown heard about this, she suddenly broke down and cried in absolute, heartbreaking agony. Bystanders, highly perplexed, tried to console her by asking, "Your son is nothing but an insignificant little soldier," yet the Grand General himself stooped from his noble height to personally suck out the pus from his sore. This is an unimaginably tremendous honor. Why on earth are you crying so heart-wrenchingly? The old mother, her face streaming with tears, lamented, "Things are absolutely not as you think. A few years ago, Lord Wu also used the exact same method to suck the sore of his father. As a result, his father was so moved to tears on the battlefield that he absolutely refused to retreat even a single step, fighting until his death, ultimately dying tragically under the swords of the enemy. Now Lord Wu is repeating his old trick and sucking the sore of my son. I, a miserable woman, already do not know on which desolate battlefield my poor son will tragically die as a corpse. It is precisely because I see through to this inevitable end that I am weeping in such utter despair." In this year, Duke Min of the state of Yan passed away, and his son, Duke Xi, ascended the throne. In the 24th year of King Wei of Shou, the Jimao year of the sexagenary cycle, 402 BC, King Wei, the son of Heaven of the Zhou dynasty, passed away. His son, King of Zhou, named Zhou, succeeded to the declining imperial throne. Astoundingly, King Shen of the Grand State of Chu was brutally assassinated by unknown bandits, forcing the people and ministers of Chu to hastily crown his son, King Dao. In the first year of King of Zhou, the Gongcheng year, 401 BC, the state of Qin launched a massive military campaign against the state of Wei, advancing their forces all the way to Wei's Yanghu region. In the second year of King of Zhou, the Xinc year, 400 BC, the three vassal states of Wei, Han, and Zhou formed a terrifying allied force, marching south to subjugate the state of Chu, pointing their military spearhead directly at Chu's Sangju. While the main force of the Three Jin alliance was away, the state of Song astonishingly seized the vulnerable moment, deploying troops to tightly encircle Han's vital stronghold of Yangdi. In this same year, Marquis Jing of Han passed away, and his son, Marquis Lai of Han, named Chu, succeeded to the title. Marquis Lai of Zhou also died. The ministers of Zhou did not crown his son, but instead enthroned his younger brother, Marquis Wu of Zhou. Duke Jian of Qin also went to his grave, and his son, Duke Hui of Qin, ascended to the throne. In the third year of King of Zhou, the Ren Wu year, 399 BC, an internal power struggle occurred within the Zhou royal house, and the defeated Prince Ding fled in panic to seek asylum in the state of Jin. In the same year, the massive Mount Guo suffered a terrifying landslide, and the earth-shattering debris actually completely blocked and severed the surging channel of the Yellow River. In the fourth year of King of Zhou, the Gui Wei year, 398 BC, the colossal state of Chu dispatched troops and heavily besieged the capital of the state of Sun. Amidst the extreme panic of the impending enemy forces, a bloody coup erupted within Zheng. The opposition ruthlessly murdered the ruling prime minister, Zizhi, in an attempt to sue for peace with Chu. In the fifth year of King of Zhou, the Jiaoshen year, 397 BC, the radiant, shining sun in the sky was actually swallowed little by a terrifying darkness in broad daylight. An eclipse occurred, plunging the hearts of the people all over the world into dread and panic. In March, an assassin killed Han's prime minister, Xiao Lei. Xiao Lei and Yan Zongzi of Puyang had a deep-seated enmity. Yan Zongzi heard of the unparalleled bravery of Niezhong from Xi. He brought 100 of precious gold to celebrate the birthday of Niezheng's mother, hoping to use this generous favor to persuade Niezheng to avenge him. Niezheng firmly refused the gold, saying, "As long as my old mother is still alive, I, Niezheng, dare not easily promise my life to anyone." After his mother passed away, Yan Zongzi sent Niezheng to assassinate Xiao Lei. Xiao Lei was sitting majestically in his prime minister's mansion, surrounded by heavily armed guards. Fearless, Niezheng charged directly up the steps like lightning and assassinated Xiao Lei. Immediately afterward, to avoid implicating his family, he ruthlessly flayed his own face, gouged out his eyes, and disemboweled himself until his intestines spilled out, dying a deeply tragic death. The Han authorities exposed his corpse in the marketplace and offered a massive bounty for any information, but absolutely no one could identify his bloodied form. His elder sister, Ying, heard the news and rushed to the market to weep over his body, declaring publicly, "This is Niezhong from Shenjinggui in Ji. It was because I, his sister, am still alive that he inflicted such severe self-mutilation to cut off all traces and protect me. But how could I possibly fear the punishment of death, and let my virtuous brother's glorious name be extinguished and forgotten forever?" Having said this, overcome with extreme grief, she died tragically right beside Niezheng's corpse. In the sixth year of King of Zhou, the EU year of the sexagenary cycle, 396 BC, the surviving partisans of the previously murdered Zheng prime minister, Zizhi, launched a bloody coup. They ruthlessly assassinated the ruler, Duke Su of Sun, and enthroned his younger brother Yi, who became known as Duke Kang of Sun. In the same year, Duke Dao of the state of Song passed away, and his son, Duke Xiu, named Tian, successfully ascended the throne. Time advanced to the 8th year of King of Zhou, the Ding Hai year of the sexagenary cycle, 394 BC. The powerful state of Qi deployed a massive army to fiercely attack the state of Lu, overwhelmingly capturing Lu's city of Sui. To check Qi's power, the state of Han immediately dispatched troops to rescue the state of Lu. At this exact time, the vital Zhou stronghold of Fushu rebelled, breaking away from Zheng's rule and returning to the embrace of the state of Han. In the 9th year of King of Zhou, the Wuzi year, 393 BC, the state of Wei also mobilized a massive army to fiercely attack the state of Sun. In this year, Duke Lai of the state of Jin, a state existing only in name, died in obscurity, and his son, Duke Shao, named Qing, succeeded to the figurehead throne. In the 11th year of King of Zhou, the Gongyin year, 391 BC, the state of Qin, on the western frontier launched a massive assault on Han's strategic stronghold of Yan, seizing 6 fortified cities in one breath. Looking back to the beginning, the powerful Qi minister Tian Cheng fathered Tian Xiangzi, named Pan. Pan fathered Tian Zhuangzi, named Bai, and Bai fathered the current absolutely powerful Tian Taigong, named He. In this very year, Tian He completely tore off all pretenses and ruthlessly exiled the lawful monarch, Duke Kong of Qi, to a desolate seaside island. He threw him a bone by allowing him the tax revenues of a single small city, merely so he could barely maintain the ancestral sacrifices to Jiangxia and his forebears. In the 12th year of King of Zhou, the Xian Mao year, 390 BC, the state of Qin and the nominal army of Jin engaged in a fierce, bloody battle at Wuchen. Simultaneously, the state of Qi, having just usurped political power, attacked the state of Wei and forcefully captured Xiangyang. However, in a shocking turn of events, the weak state of Lu actually crushed the arrogant Qi army into an utter rout at Pingbo. Time advanced to the 13th year of King of Zhou, the Renchuan year, 389 BC. The highly ambitious state of Qin once again crossed the border to massively invade Jin. Tian He, the de facto ruler of Qi, held an extremely grand meeting with the world hegemon Marquis I of Wei, along with envoys from Chu and Wei, at Duoza. Tian He humbly implored them to pull strings to help him be officially and legitimately recognized as the feudal lord of Qi. Having struck a deal for political interests, Marquis I of Wei stepped forward to issue an ultimatum-like petition to the King of Zhou and the other feudal lords on Tian He's behalf. Facing the prestige of the hegemon, the feeble King of Zhou had no choice but to helplessly grant this highly treasonous request. In the 15th year of King of Zhou, the Jiaowu year, 387 BC, the Qin army struck toward the southwest to attack the state of Shu, conquering the strategic location of Nansheng in one fell swoop. In the same year, Marquis I of Wei, the greatest hegemon of the early warring states period, passed away from this world. His crown prince, Wei Ji, inherited the throne of the massive empire and became known in history as Marquis Wu of Wei. Marquis Wu of Wei was drifting down the West River in a magnificent boat. In the middle of the current, he turned to Wu Qi and exclaimed, "How majestic and formidable are these mountains and rivers! They are truly the treasure of our state of Wei." Wu Qi replied steadily, "Safety depends on virtue, not on natural barriers." In ancient times, the Sanmia tribe had Lake Dongting on their left and Lake Pengli on their right, yet because they neglected virtue and justice, Emperor Yu destroyed them. The capital of Jia, the tyrant of Xia, was flanked by the Yellow and Ji rivers on the left, and Mount Tai and Mount Hua on the right, with the Yik Pass to the south and the Yangchang slope to the north. Yet because his rule was cruel and lacked benevolence, Tang exiled him. The kingdom of Zhou Shang had Meimen Pass to its left and the Taihang Mountains to its right, with Mount Chang to the north and the Yellow River flowing to the south. Because he failed to practice virtuous governance, King Wu killed him. From this perspective, it depends on virtue, not on natural barriers. If you do not cultivate virtue, even the people in this very boat could become your enemies, Marquis Wu said. Well said. The state of Wei appointed a prime minister and chose Tian Wen for the post. Wu Qi was displeased and said to Tian Wen, "May I discuss our respective merits with you?" Tian Wen replied, "You may." Wu Qi said, "Commanding the 3 armies and making the soldiers willing to die for the cause, such that enemy states dare not plot against us, how do you compare with me?" Tian Wen said, "I am not as good as you." Wu Qi asked, "Managing the 100 officials, winning the hearts of the myriad people, and filling the state treasuries, how do you compare with me?" Tian Wen replied again, "I am not as good as you." Wu Qi continued, "Guarding the West River so that the Qin army dares not look eastward, and keeping Han and Shao in submission, how do you compare with me?" Tian Wen answered as before, "I am not as good as you." Wu Qi asked aggressively, "In these 3 matters, you fall below me, yet your rank is placed above mine. Why is that? Tian replied calmly, when the ruler is young and the nation is in doubt, the ministers are not yet loyal, and the people do not yet trust at such a time, should the post be entrusted to you or to me? Wu Qi remained silent for a long time, then said, it should be entrusted to you. After a long time, the prime minister of Wei, Gongshu, who had married a princess of Wei, wanted to harm Wu Qi. A servant of Gongshu said, Wu Qi can be easily removed. Wu Qi is a man of rigid character and pride. You should first say to the ruler, Wu Qi is a man of virtue, but your state is small. I fear he has no heart to remain. Why don't you test him by offering him a princess in marriage? If he has no intention of staying, he will surely refuse. You should then take him home and have the princess insult you in front of him. Seeing how the princess treats you with contempt, he will certainly decline the offer, and your plan will succeed. Gongshu followed this advice, and Wu Qi indeed refused the princess. Marquis Wu of Wei began to doubt him. Fearing execution, Wu Qi fled to the state of Chu. King Dao of Chu had long heard of Wu Qi's talent and appointed him prime minister upon his arrival. Wu Qi clarified the laws and decrees, eliminated unnecessary offices, and abolished the privileges of distant royal relatives. He used the savings to support and train combat soldiers, focusing on strengthening the military and crushing the rhetoric of traveling orators advocating alliances. Consequently, Chu pacified the Bai Wai in the south, repelled the three Jin in the north, and attacked Qin in the west. All the feudal lords feared Chu's power, yet many of Chu's royal relatives and senior ministers harbored deep resentment against Wu Qi. Duke Hui of Qin passed away, and his son, Duke Chu, succeeded him. Marquis Wu of Shao died, and the people enthroned the crown prince of Marquis Lai, named Zhang, who became Marquis Jing. Marquis Lai of Han died, and his son, Marquis Wen, succeeded him. In the 16th year of King An of Shou, 386 BC, the king of Shou for the first time formally appointed the senior official of Qi, Tianhe, as a feudal lord. Prince Chao of Shao started a rebellion, fled to Wei after failing, and then joined forces with Wei to launch a sneak attack on Handan, but they were unsuccessful. In the 17th year of King An of Shou, 385 BC, the Qing official Shu Wanggai welcomed Duke Xian back from the West River region and enthroned him. The new faction killed the deposed child ruler Duke Chu and his mother, drowning them in a pool. In the same year, Qi attacked Lu. Han attacked Song and took Yangcheng, then it attacked Song and captured the Duke of Song. Tagang of Qi passed away, and his son, Duke Huan, named Wu, succeeded him. In the 19th year of King An of Shou, 383 BC, the Wei army defeated the Zhou army at Tutai. In the 20th year of King An of Shou, 382 BC, there was a solar eclipse, and it was total. In the 21st year of King An of Shou, the Gongzi year, 381 BC, King Dao of Chu passed away. Immediately, the royal relatives and high-ranking ministers, who harbored deep resentment toward the reforms, launched a violent rebellion and fiercely attacked Wu Qi. In this moment of life and death, Wu Qi sprinted toward the king's bier and threw himself over the royal court to cling to it. The mob attacking Wu Qi, blinded by long-standing hatred, recklessly shot arrows and thrust spears at him. Consequently, amidst the flurry of missiles and blades, they not only killed Wu Qi but also struck and pierced the late King Dao's court multiple times. After King Dao was buried, his son, King Su, ascended the throne. He immediately ordered the prime minister, Lin Yin, to execute every individual involved in the rebellion that led to the desecration of the late king's body. Consequently, more than 70 prominent families were implicated and had their entire clans exterminated. In the 22nd year of King An, the year of Xingqiu, 380 BC, the powerful eastern state of Qi launched a military campaign against the northern state of Yan, successfully capturing the strategic city of Sangqiu. The states of Wei, Han, and Zhou, collectively known as the Three Jin, observing Qi's expansion, immediately formed an alliance to attack Qi. Their combined forces advanced all the way to Sangqiu, exerting immense military pressure upon Qi. In the 3rd year of King An, the year of Renin, 379 BC, the state of Zhou launched a surprise elite force attack on the small state of Wei. Despite its size, Wei defended itself tenaciously, and Zhou failed to conquer it. Duke Kang of Qi passed away without leaving an heir. With his death, the state of Qi, originally established by Jiang Zia, officially came to an end. The Tian clan subsequently annexed the entire state and took complete possession of the realm. In the same year, Duke Huan of the Tian Qi state, Tian Wu, also passed away. His son, King Wei of Qi, Tianlin, formally ascended the throne. In the 24th year of King An, the year of Guimao, 378 BC, the Di people, northern ethnic tribes, defeated the Wei army near the Wei River, dealing a significant setback to Wei during its peak period. Wei, Han, and Zhou once again formed a coalition to invade Qi, with their armies advancing deep into the territory to Lingqiu. In the same year, Duke Shao of Jin, ruler of a state that existed in name only, passed away. His son, Duke Jing, named Zhou, inherited the titular rank. In the 25th year of King An, the year of Jiechen, 377 BC, the southwestern state of Shu launched an attack on the southern power, the state of Chu, and successfully seized the border stronghold of Xifang. Zizhi, the grandson of Confucius, recommended the warrior Gou Bian to the Marquis of Wei, saying with great conviction, "This man's military talent is exceptional. He is fully capable of commanding a formidable army of 500 chariots." The Marquis of Wei sighed and said, "I am well aware of his generalship. However, when Gou Bian served as a minor official collecting taxes, he once ate 2 chicken eggs belonging to a commoner without paying. Because of this petty corruption, I refuse to employ him." Zizhi replied solemnly, "When truly sage rulers appoint officials, they are like master carpenters using wood. They select the timber for its sturdy strengths while magnanimously overlooking its minor defects. Therefore, even if a majestic and precious tree like the Qi or Zi, which takes several arm spans to encircle, has a few feet of rot, a master craftsman would never discard the entire valuable timber. Now you are living in the cutthroat era of the warring states, where you urgently need to select fierce generals to defend the realm. If you discard a commander capable of guarding your cities over the matter of Chuags, such an absurdity must never reach the ears of neighboring states, lest you become a laughingstock." The Marquis of Wei, filled with shame, bowed repeatedly and said, "I respectfully accept your instruction." Yet, when the Marquis proposed administrative plans that were entirely incorrect, the assembled ministers echoed him in unison, as if speaking with a single mouth. Zizhi lamented, "From my observation of Wei, it is a case of the ruler not acting like a ruler, and the ministers not acting like ministers." The official Gongjiu Yizi asked in confusion, "How did it come to this?" Zizhi replied, "When a ruler is self-righteous and constantly praises his own judgment, the collective wisdom and counsel of others will never reach him. Even when a ruler is correct, praising his own success discourages others from offering counsel. How much worse is it when everyone blindly echoes his errors, thereby fostering his bad habits and faults? To refuse to examine the truth of a matter while only delighting in self-praise is the height of ignorance. To disregard reason while only seeking to please through flattery is the height of sycophancy. When a foolish ruler and sycophantic ministers rule over the people will never support them. If this situation continues unabated, the nation will be left with no foundation and no survivors." Zizhi spoke anxiously to the Marquis of Wei, "The way you handle national affairs will likely cause the situation to deteriorate day by day." The Marquis asked in surprise, "Why is that?" Zizhi answered frankly, "There are deep-seated reasons for this. Whenever you speak, you consider yourself absolutely correct, and not one of your high officials dares to point out your mistakes. Likewise, when your officials speak to their subordinates, they also consider themselves infallible, and the scholars and commoners dare not correct them. Since the monarch and ministers all consider themselves wise, and their subordinates echo this praise in unison, everyone knows that following along brings benefits and blessings, while correcting errors leads to friction and disaster. In such an environment, how could any good policy or virtuous advice ever emerge? The Book of Songs says, "Everyone boasts that they are the most sagacious, but who can distinguish the male crow from the female in the dark? Is this not an apt satire of the relationship between you and your ministers?" Duke Mu of Lu passed away, and his son, Duke Gong, named Feng, succeeded him. Marquis Wen of Han also passed away, and his son, Marquis Ai, ascended the throne. In the 26th year of King of Zhou, 376 BC, King An passed away, and his son, King Lai, named Xi, officially ascended the throne. The states of Wei, Han, and Zhou jointly deposed Duke Jing of Jin, reducing him to a commoner, and completely partitioned his final remaining territories. In the first year of King Lai of Zhou, 375 BC, a terrifying solar eclipse occurred in the sky. The state of Han dispatched troops and utterly destroyed the neighboring state of Sun, subsequently moving its capital to Ren's former seat, Xinzhen. Marquis Jing of Zhou passed away, and his son, Marquis Qing, named Sheng, succeeded him. Time advanced to the third year of King Lai, 373 BC. The army of Yan crushed the Qi forces at Linhu. The state of Lu seized the opportunity to attack Qi, advancing into Yangguan. Even Wei launched a campaign against Qi, its vanguard pushing all the way to Bowling. Duke Xi of Yan, Duke Xiu of Song, and Duke Shen of Wei all passed away in succession this year. Their sons Duke Huan of Yan, Duke Pai of Song, and Duke Shen of Wei, named Sun, each ascended to their respective thrones. In the fourth year of King Lai, 372 BC, Zhao launched a fierce assault on Wei, seizing as many as 73 major cities and minor settlements. The state of Wei subsequently intervened, dealing a crushing defeat to the Zhao army at Beilin. In the fifth year of King Lai, 371 BC, the state of Wei once again demonstrated its dominance by launching a massive southern campaign against the state of Chu, successfully capturing the strategic stronghold of Luoyang. The powerful official Yan Sui of the state of Han committed the ultimate betrayal by assassinating his sovereign, Marquis Ai. Subsequently, the people of the capital enthroned the Marquis's son, who became known as Marquis. To trace the origin of this tragedy, it began when Marquis Ai appointed Han Kuei as prime minister while simultaneously favoring Yan Sui. The two men harbored deep-seated animosity and relentlessly plotted to destroy each other. The ruthless Yan Sui dispatched an assassin to strike Prime Minister Han Kuei right in the middle of the solemn imperial court. Terror-stricken, Han Kuei sprinted toward Marquis Ai for refuge, and the Marquis instinctively threw his arms around him to shield him. However, as the assassin thrust his blade into Han Kuei, the cold steel mercilessly pierced through and struck Marquis Ai as well. The ambitious Marquis Wu of Wei passed away, but significantly, he had failed to formally designate a crown prince during his lifetime. Consequently, his sons Wei Ying and Gong Ronghuan engaged in a fierce struggle for the supreme throne, instantly plunging the entire state of Wei into the dark clouds of internal chaos. In the sixth year of King Lai of Zhou, the year of Xinhai, 370 BC, the mighty King Wei of Qi personally traveled to Luoyang to pay homage to the destitute son of heaven. At that time, the Zhou royal house was extremely weak and frail, and the various feudal lords had long ceased their tributes. Only King Wei of Qi steadfastly adhered to the rituals and came to pay his respects. Because of this, everyone under heaven admired King Wei even more for his sagacity and magnanimity. The state of Zhou launched a sudden military campaign against Qi, its aggressive offensive advancing all the way to the region of Wan. Simultaneously, the state of Wei refused to remain idle, launching a massive counterattack at Wei and utterly routing the Zhou army. King Wei of Qi specifically summoned the grand official of Jima and said with a somber expression, "Ever since you took charge of Jima, all sorts of slander and malicious rumors about you have reached my ears almost every single day. However, I have repeatedly dispatched secret investigators to Jima for on-site inspections, only to find that the wilderness has been transformed into fertile fields. The common people are living in prosperity, and there are no backlogged cases or grievances in the local government. Thanks to you, the entire eastern region of Qi enjoys profound peace. It is now clear to me that this is solely because you focus on the welfare of the people and refuse to bribe my close attendants to speak well of you." Having said this, King Wei grandly rewarded him in public, enfeoffing him with a territory of 10,000 households. Next, King Wei cold-facedly summoned the grand official of Ai and spoke to him sternly. "Since you were assigned to govern, various praises and glowing compliments about you have arrived before me every day like a flurry of snowflakes. But when I dispatched men to inspect on site, I found the countryside desolate and overgrown with weeds, and the common people pale and emaciated, struggling on the very brink of starvation and death. The other day when the state of Zhou attacked Wan, you stood idly by and offered no help. When the state of Wei seized our Shuling, you were as oblivious as a wooden statue. All of this proves that you have merely been using vast sums of money to bribe my close attendants in exchange for those deceptive and fraudulent praises. On that very day, the furious King Wei issued a brutal command. The grand official of, along with those close attendants who had accepted bribes and frantically praised him, were all to be thrown into boiling cauldrons and cooked to death. From that moment on, all the officials of Qi trembled with such shock that no one ever dared to resort to hypocritical and fraudulent schemes again. Everyone strove to reflect the true state of the realm to the king. Consequently, the state of Qi was governed to perfection, leaping forward to become the most prosperous and powerful superpower under heaven. King Su Chu passed away, and since he left no heir, his younger brother Xiong Liangfu was enthroned, becoming known as King Xian. In the same year, Duke Pai of Song also passed away, and his son Ticheng ascended the throne to inherit the title. In the 7th year of King Lai, the year of Renzi, 369 BC, another solar eclipse occurred in the sky, an omen of the sun being obscured. In this year, King Lai of Zhou passed away. Since he had no direct heir, his younger brother Ji Bian succeeded to the throne of the Son of Heaven, becoming known as King Xian of Zhou. The grand official Wang Jiu of Wei, having failed in an internal struggle, fled in panic to the state of Han for asylum. The Han strategist Gong Sanqi seized the opportunity to say to Marquis, Wei is currently embroiled in chaos due to the succession struggle. This is the perfect opportunity for us to deploy troops and seize its territories. Persuaded, Marquis of Han joined forces with Marquis Cheng of Shao to launch a joint military campaign against Wei. The allied armies engaged the Wei forces in a fierce battle at Zuosa, crushing them into a rout, and subsequently proceeded to surround the remnants of the Wei power. Marquis Cheng of Shao, filled with confidence, proposed, we should simply execute Wei Yin, install the more submissive Gong Ronghuan as the ruler of Wei, and then force them to cede vast territories to us before withdrawing. This would be the greatest benefit for our two states of Han and Hao. But Marquis of Han shook his head in disagreement. That will not do. To murder the legitimate heir of Wei without cause would be viewed by the world as a brutal and unrighteous act. To simply seize land and leave would be ridiculed as greed. It is better to simply split Wei into two and dismantle it entirely. As long as Wei is partitioned into two weak states, its national power will be no stronger than the states of Song or Wei. From then on, our states of Han and Shao will never again have to worry about the threat of Wei. Seeing that Han refused to cooperate, Marquis Cheng of Shao also left in a huff with his army. Seizing the moment when his enemies had dispersed, Wei Yin launched a desperate counterattack, executed his brother Gong Ronghuan, and finally ascended to the throne of Wei, becoming the famous King Wei of Wei. The grand historian Sima Qian commented, the reason King Wei of Wei could save his own life and prevent the state of Wei from being partitioned was entirely because the strategies of Han and Shao were discordant and failed to reach a consensus. If Han and Shao had followed the plan of either party and acted in unison, the state of Wei would likely have vanished long ago. Thus it is said, when a monarch passes away without having established a legitimate heir, the nation is on the verge of utter disintegration. 周姬一起着雍赦提革，进玄义困敦，凡35年，威烈王23年，戊寅，公元前403年，出命晋大夫魏斯、赵佶、韩虔为诸侯。陈光曰：臣闻天子之职莫大于礼，礼莫大于分，分莫大于名。何谓礼？纪纲是也。何谓分？君臣是也。何谓名？公、侯、卿、大夫是也。夫以四海之广，兆民之众，受制于一人，虽有绝伦之力，高士之志，莫敢不奔走而服役者，岂非以礼为之纲纪哉？是故天子统三公，三公率诸侯，诸侯治卿大夫，卿大夫治士庶人。贵以临贱，贱以成贵。上之始下，由心腹之运手足，根本之治之业；下之世上，由手足之谓心腹，之业之必本根。然后能上下相保而国家治安。故曰：天子之职莫大于礼也。文王绪义以乾坤为首。孔子系之曰：天尊地卑，乾坤定矣，卑高以臣，贵以贱位矣。言君臣之位，由天地之不可易也。春秋，义诸侯，尊周氏。王人虽威，序于诸侯之上，以是见圣人于君臣之际，未尝不全也。非有桀、纣之暴，汤、武之人，人归之，天命之，君臣之分，当守节服死而已矣。 是故以微子而代纣，则成汤配天矣；以季札而君无，则泰伯血食矣。然二子宁亡国而不为者，诚以礼之大节，不可乱也。故曰：礼莫大于分也。夫礼，辨贵贱，序亲疏，裁群物，治术士，非名不着，非器不行。名以命之，器以别之，然后上下灿然有伦，此礼之大经也。名器既亡，则礼安的独在。昔仲舒于昔有功于魏，辞义而请盘婴，孔子以为不如多语之意。为名与器，不可以假人，君之所思也。政亡，则国家从之。魏君待孔子而为政，孔子欲先正名，以为名不正，则民无所措手足。夫盘婴，小物也，而孔子惜之；正名，细物也，而孔子先之。诚以名器既乱，则上下无以相保固也。夫是未有不生于微而成于著。圣人之虑远，故能谨其微而治之；众人之识近，故必待其著而后救之。治其微，则用力寡而功多；救其著，则竭力而不能及也。亦曰：履霜，坚冰。至，书曰：一日二日万几，为此类也。故曰：分莫大于名也。呜呼！忧，立失德，周道日衰，纲纪散坏，下陵上替，诸侯专争，大夫善政，礼之大体，实丧七八矣。然闻武之嗣由绵绵相主者，盖以周之子孙尚能守其名分故也。何以言之？西晋文公有大功于王室，请遂于襄王，襄王不许，曰：王章也。未有代德而有二王，亦叔父之所恶也。不然，叔父有弟而遂，又何请焉？文公于是乎惧而不敢为。是故以周之地，则不大于曹腾；以周之民，则不重于朱据。然历数百年，宗主天下，虽以晋、楚、齐、秦之强，不敢加者，何在？徒以名分尚存故也。至于季氏之于鲁，田常之于齐，白公之于楚，智伯之于晋，其事皆足以逐君而自为。然而足不敢者，岂其力不足而心不忍哉？乃为奸名犯分而天下共诛之也。今晋大夫暴灭齐军，剖分晋国，天子既不能讨，又宠治之，使列于诸侯，是区区之名，吩咐不能守而摒弃之也。先王之礼于斯尽矣。或者以为当世之时，周氏微弱，三晋强盛，虽欲勿许，岂可得乎？事大不然。夫三晋虽强，苟不顾天下之诸而犯以亲礼，则不请于天子而自立矣。不请于天子而自立，则为悖逆之臣。天下苟有桓、文之君，必奉礼义而争之。今请于天子而天子许之，是受天子之命而为诸侯也，谁得而讨之？故三晋之列于诸侯，非三晋之坏礼，乃天子自坏之也。呜呼！君臣之礼既坏矣，则天下以智力相雄长，遂使圣贤之后为诸侯者，社稷无不泯绝，生民之类弥灭激尽，岂不哀哉？初，至宣子将以尧为后。至果曰：不如萧也。尧之贤于人者五，其不逮者一也。美变长大则贤，射御足力则贤，技艺必给则贤，巧文辩会则贤，强毅果敢则贤，如是而甚不仁。夫以其五贤凌人，而以不仁行之，其谁能待之？若果立尧也，至宗必灭。夫听治果别族于太史为府事。赵简子之子，长曰伯鲁，幼曰无恤。将至后，不知所立，乃书训戒之辞于二简，以授二子曰：谨失之。3年而问之，伯鲁不能举其辞，求其简，以失之矣。问无恤，送其辞甚习，求其简，出诸袖中而奏之。于是简子以无恤为贤，立以为后。简子使尹铎为晋阳，请曰：以为简思乎？亦为保障乎？简子曰：保障在。尹铎损其户数。简子谓无恤曰：晋国有难，而吾以尹铎为少，吾以晋阳为远，必以为归。及至宣子卒，至襄子为政，与韩康子、魏桓子宴于兰台。至伯系康子而武断归，治国闻之，谏曰：主不备难，难必至矣。智伯曰：难将有我，我不为难，谁敢兴之？对曰：不然。下书有之曰：一人三师，愿起在明，不见仕途。夫君子能勤小物，故无大患。今主一宴而耻人之君相，又服备，曰不敢幸难，吾乃不可乎？锐、以、风、虿皆能害人，况君相乎？夫听 智伯请帝于韩康子，康子欲服与。段归曰：智伯好利而弊，不与，将伐我，不如与之。彼纽于得地，必请于他人，他人不与，必向之以兵。然则我得免于患而待事之变矣。康子曰：善。使使者至万家之意于智伯，智伯曰：又求帝于魏桓子，桓子欲服与。任章曰：何故服与？桓子曰：无故所得，故服与。任章曰：无故所得，诸大夫必惧，无与之地，智伯必骄。彼骄而轻敌，此惧而相亲。以相亲之兵待轻敌之人，治世之命必不长矣。周书曰：将欲败之，必孤辅之；将欲取之，必孤与之。主不如与之以交智伯，然后可以择交而图治世矣。奈何独以无为治世治乎？桓子曰：善。复与之万家之意一。智伯又求蔡高郎之地于赵襄子，襄子服与。智伯怒，率韩、魏之甲以攻赵氏。襄子将出，曰：吾何走乎？从者曰：长子进，且成后完。襄子曰：民罢利以完之，又必死以守之，其谁与我？从者曰：邯郸之仓库使。襄子曰：郡民之高则以食之，又因而杀之，其谁与我？其晋阳乎？先主之所属也，引夺之所宽也，民必何矣？乃走晋阳。三家以国人为而冠之，诚不进者3板。臣造产洼，民无叛议。智伯行水，魏桓子欲，韩康子参成。智伯曰：吾乃今之水，可以亡人国也。桓子肘康子，康子履桓子之夫，以汾水可以灌安邑，降水可以灌平阳也。指此谓智伯曰：韩、魏必反矣。智伯曰：子何以知之？指此曰：以人事知之。夫从韩、魏之兵以攻赵，赵亡，南必及韩、魏矣。今曰胜赵而3分其地，城不没者3板，人马向时，城将有日，而二子无喜志，有忧色，是非反而合。明日，智伯以指此之言告二子，二子曰：此夫谗臣欲为赵氏游说，使主意于两家而泄于攻赵氏也。不然，夫两家岂不立朝夕分赵氏之田，而欲为危难不可成之事乎？二子出，指此入曰：主何以臣之言告二子也？智伯曰：子何以知之？对曰：臣见其事臣端而趋吉，知臣得其情故也。智伯不劝，指此情始于其。赵襄子使张孟谈前出见二子，曰：臣闻唇亡则齿寒。今智伯率韩、魏而攻赵，赵亡则韩、魏谓之次矣。二子曰：我心知其然也，恐是未遂而谋泄，则获利至矣。张孟谈曰：谋出二主之口，入臣之耳，何伤也？二子乃前与张孟谈曰：谓之7日而遣之。襄子夜使人杀守堤之力，而决水灌智伯军。智伯军就水而乱，韩、魏议而击之。襄子将卒犯其前，大败智伯之众，遂杀智伯，尽灭智。是之卒，为夫果在。陈光曰：智伯之亡也，才胜德也。夫才与德义，而世俗莫之能辨，通谓之贤，此其所以失人也。夫从察强义之谓才，正直中和之谓德。才者，德之资也；德者，才之帅也。云梦之竹，天下之尽也。然而不矫揉，不与阔，则不能以入坚。唐僖之金，天下之利也。然而不容犯，不砥砺，则不能以击强。是故才德全尽谓之圣人，才德兼王谓之愚人，德胜才谓之君子，才胜德谓之小人。凡取人之术，苟不得圣人、君子而与之，与其得小人，不若得愚人。何则？君子挟才以为善，小人挟才以为恶。挟才以为善者，善无不至矣；挟才以为恶者，恶亦无不至矣。愚者虽欲为不善，智不能周，力不能胜，必之如苟伯人，仁德而治之。小人智足以遂其坚，勇足以决其暴，是虎而益者也，其为害岂不多哉？夫德者人之所言，而才者人之所爱。爱者亦亲，言者亦疏，是以察者多避于才而疑于德。自古稀以来，国之乱臣，家之败子，才有余而德不足，以至于颠覆者多矣，岂特智伯哉？故为国为家者，苟能审于才德之分而知所先后，又何失人之足患哉？三家分治世之田，赵襄子欺智伯之头，以为隐器。 智伯之臣欲让欲为之报仇，乃诈为行人，携匕首入襄子宫中图策。襄子如策心动，所知或欲让，左右欲杀之。襄子曰：智伯死无后，而此人欲为报仇，真义是也。吾谨避之耳。乃舍之。欲让又欺身为赖，吞炭为雅，行起于世，其妻不食也。行见其有，其有食之，谓之弃曰：以子之才，陈氏赵孟，必得尽兴。子乃为所欲为，故不义邪？何乃自苦如此？求以报仇，不亦难乎？欲让曰：既以伪志为臣，而又求杀之，是二心也。凡无所为者，极难耳。然所以为此者，将以馈天下后世之为人，臣怀二心者也。襄子出，欲让伏于桥下。襄子至桥，马惊所知，得欲让，遂杀之。襄子谓伯鲁之不利也，有子5人，不肯至后。封伯鲁之子于代，曰代成君，早卒，立其子焕为赵氏后。襄子卒，弟桓子逐焕而自立，1年卒。赵氏之人曰：桓子立，非相逐矣。乃共杀其子，复迎焕而立之，是为献子。献子生，即是为列侯。魏司者，魏桓子之孙也，是为文侯。韩康子生5子，5子生前，是为景侯。魏文侯以不子夏，田子方为师，每过断干木之庐必是。四方贤士多归之。文侯与群臣饮酒乐，而天雨，命驾将事也。左右曰：今日饮酒乐，天又雨，君将安之？文侯曰：吾与愚人期烈，虽乐，岂可无一会期哉？乃往，身自罢之。韩介失于魏以伐赵。文侯曰：寡人与赵兄弟也，不敢闻命。赵介失于魏以伐韩，文侯应之亦然。二国皆怒而去。已而知文侯以讲于己也，皆朝于魏。魏由是使大于3晋，诸侯莫能与之争。使岳阳伐中山，克之，以封其子姬。文侯问于群臣曰：我何如主？皆曰：人君。任作曰：君得中山，不以封君之地，而以封君之子，何谓人君？文侯怒，人作驱出。次问翟璜，对曰：人君也。文侯曰：何以知之？对曰：臣闻君人则臣直，相者任作之言直，臣是以知之。文侯曰：使翟璜召人坐而反之，亲下堂迎之，以为上客。文侯与田子方饮，文侯曰：终生不比乎？坐高。田子方笑。文侯曰：何笑？子方曰：臣闻之，君名乐观，不名乐音。今君审于音，臣恐其聋于观也。文侯曰：善。子季出，遭田子方于道，下车服谒。子方不为礼。子激怒，谓子方曰：富贵者骄人乎？贫贱者骄人乎？子方曰：亦贫贱者骄人耳，富贵者安敢骄人？国君而骄人，则失其国；大夫而骄人，则失其家。失其国者，未闻有以国代之者也；失其家者，未闻有以家代之者也。夫是贫贱者，言不用，行不合，则纳履而去耳，安往而不得贫贱哉？子姬乃谢之。文侯谓李克曰：先生常有言曰：家贫思良妻，国乱思良相。今所至非诚则谎，二子何如？对曰：卑不谋尊，疏不谋妻。臣在阙门之外，不敢当命。文侯曰：先生临事勿让。克曰：君服察故也。居是其所亲，富是其所与，达是其所举，穷是其所不为，贫是其所不取，吾者足以定之矣，何待克哉？文侯曰：先生就舍，吾之相定矣。李克出，见翟璜。翟璜曰：今者闻君召先生而补相，果谁为之？克曰：未成。翟璜愤然作色曰：西河守吴起，臣所进也。君内以业为忧，臣进西门豹。君欲伐中山，臣进岳阳。中山以拔，吾使守之，臣进先生。君之子无父，臣进居侯父。以耳目之所睹计，臣何负于未成？李克曰：子之言克于子之君者，岂将比周以求大官哉？君问相于克，克之对如是。所以知君之必相未成者，未成10路千中，19在外，11在内，是以东的卜子夏、田子方、段干木。此3人者，君皆失之；子所近5人者，君皆臣之。子恶的与未成比也。翟璜群询在拜曰：璜，鄙人也。师对，愿卒为弟子。 无其者，魏人，是于鲁。其人伐鲁，鲁人欲以为将，其娶其女为妻，鲁人疑之，起杀其以求将，大破其师。或赠之鲁侯曰：其始是真生，母死不奔丧，曾参决之。今又杀其以求为军将，其残忍薄行人也。且以鲁国区区而有圣敌之名，则诸侯屠鲁矣。其恐得罪。闻魏文侯贤，乃往归之。文侯问诸李克，李克曰：岂贪而好色，然用兵司马穰居弗能过也。于是文侯以为将，击秦，拔5城。岂之为将，与士卒最下者同衣食，卧不设席，行不其成，轻果营粮，与士卒分劳苦。卒有病居者，岂为吮之？祖母闻而哭之。人曰：子卒也，而将军自吮其居，何哭为？母曰：非然也。往年吴公吮其父，其父战不选种，遂死于敌。吴公今又吮其子，妾不知其死所以，是以哭之。燕闵公薨，子奚公立。24年己卯，公元前402年，王崩，子安王交立。盗杀楚生王，国人立其子悼王。安王元年庚辰，公元前401年，秦伐魏，至阳湖。2年辛巳，公元前400年，魏、韩、赵伐楚，至桑丘。正为韩阳宅。韩景侯薨，子列侯取立。赵列侯薨，国人立其第5侯。秦简公薨，子惠公立。3年壬午，公元前399年，王子定奔晋。国山崩，雍和。4年癸未，公元前398年，楚为郑。郑人杀其相似子阳。5年甲申，公元前397年，日有食之。3月，盗杀韩相侠累。侠累与濮阳言仲子有恶。仲子闻指人聂政之勇，以黄金100亿为郑母寿，欲因以报仇。郑不受，曰：老母在，郑身未敢以许人也。及母卒，仲子乃使郑刺侠累。侠累方作府上，兵未甚众，聂政直入上街，刺杀侠累，因自皮面绝眼，自屠出肠。韩人报其师于市，构问，莫能使。其子应闻而往哭之，曰：是只身警礼聂政也。以妾尚在之故，仲自行以绝从。妾奈何为莫身之诛，终灭贤弟之名，遂死于郑师之旁。6年乙酉，公元前396年，郑嗣子阳之党是虚公，而立其弟矣，是为康公。宋悼公薨，子修公田立。8年丁亥，公元前394年，齐伐鲁，取罪。韩救罗。郑附属叛，复归韩。9年戊子，公元前393年，魏伐郑。晋列公薨，子孝公亲立。11年庚寅，公元前391年，秦伐韩宜阳，取6邑。初，田常生襄子盘，盘生庄子白，白生太公和。是岁，齐田和迁齐康公于海上，始食一城，以奉其先祀。12年辛卯，公元前390年，秦进战于武城。齐伐魏，取襄阳。鲁败其师于平洛。13年壬辰，公元前389年，秦亲晋。齐田和会魏文侯，楚人，魏人于卓泽，求为诸侯。魏文侯为之，请于王及诸侯，王许之。15年甲午，公元前387年，秦伐蜀，取南郑。魏文侯薨，太子姬立，是为武侯。武侯扶西河而下，中流故谓吴起曰：美哉山河之固，此魏国之宝也。对曰：在德不在险。西三苗氏，左洞庭，右彭蠡，得意不修，与灭之。夏桀之居，左何忌，右太华，伊阙在其南，杨常在其北，修正不仁。汤放之，商纣之国，左孟门，右太行，常山在其北，大河经其南，修正不得，武王杀之。由此观之，在德不在险。若君不修德，周中之人皆敌国也。武侯曰：善。谓至相，相田文。吴起不悦，谓田文曰：请于此论功，可乎？田文曰：可。启曰：将三军，使士卒乐死，敌国不敢谋，子孰于启？文曰：不如子。启曰：治百官，亲万民，食府库，子孰于启？文曰：不如子。启曰：守西河而秦兵不敢东乡，韩、赵宾从，子孰于启？文曰：不如子。启曰：此三者子皆出无下，而未加无上，何也？文曰：主少国疑，大臣未附，百姓不信，方士之时，属之子乎？属之我乎？启默然良久，曰：属之子矣。 久之，魏相公叔上位公主而害吴起。公叔之仆曰：起亦去也。岂为人刚敬自喜，子先言于君曰：吴起贤人也，而君之国小，臣恐起之无留心也。君何事言夷女？岂无留心，则必辞矣。子因于起归而使公主如子，岂见公主之见子也？必辞，则子之计中矣。公叔从之。吴起果辞公主。魏武侯疑之而未信，起拒诛，遂奔楚。楚悼王素闻其贤，至则人之为相。起明法审令，捐部级之官，废公族疏远者，以抚养战斗之士，要在强兵，破游说之言从横者。于是南平百越，北却三晋，西伐秦，诸侯皆患楚之强，而楚之贵戚大臣多怨吴起者。秦惠公薨，子出公立。赵武侯薨，国人复立列侯之太子章，是为靖侯。韩烈侯薨，子文侯立。16年乙未，公元前386年，初命其大夫田和为诸侯。赵公子朝作乱，出奔魏，与魏系邯郸，不克。17年丙申，公元前385年，秦庶长改逆献公于河西而立之，杀出子及其母，陈之渊旁。其伐罗。韩伐郑，取阳城，伐宋，执宋公。其太公薨，子桓公武立。19年戊戌，公元前383年，魏败赵师于兔台。20年己亥，公元前382年，日有食之，祭。21年庚子，公元前381年，楚悼王薨，贵戚大臣作乱，攻吴起，其走之王师而伏之。击起之徒因射刺起，并中王师，祭葬，肃王即位，使令引尽诛为乱者，作起遗宗者70余家。22年辛丑，公元前380年，齐伐燕，取桑丘。魏、韩、赵伐齐，至桑丘。23年壬寅，公元前379年，赵袭位，不克。齐康公薨，无子，田氏遂并齐而有之。是岁，齐桓公亦薨，子威王因其立。24年癸卯，公元前378年，敌败魏氏于会。魏、韩、赵伐齐，至灵丘。晋孝公薨，子敬公据9立。25年甲辰，公元前377年，蜀伐楚，取资方。子思言苟辩于魏侯曰：其才可将500乘。公曰：吾知其可将，然辩也常为利，富于民而食人二箕子，故服用也。子思曰：夫圣人之官人，由将之用木也，取其所长，弃其所短，故其子连暴而有数尺之朽，良弓不弃。今君处战国之势，选爪牙之势，而以2卵弃干城之将，此不可使闻于邻国也。公在拜曰：谨受教矣。魏侯言既非是，而群臣何者如出一口。子思曰：以无官位，所谓君不君，臣不臣者也。公丘义子曰：何乃若是？子思曰：人主自赃，则众谋不尽。事事而赃之，犹却众谋，况何非以长恶乎？夫不察事之是非，而悦人赞己，暗莫甚焉；不夺理之所在，而阿谀求荣，谄莫甚焉。君按臣产，以居百姓之上，民不与也。若此不已，国无类矣。子思言于魏侯曰：君之国事，将日非矣。公曰：何故？对曰：有由然焉。君出言自以为是，而卿大夫莫敢矫其非；卿大夫出言亦自以为是，而士庶人莫敢矫其非。君臣既自贤矣，而群下同声贤之，贤之则顺而有福，矫之则逆而有祸，如此则善安从生。是曰：据曰于圣，谁知乌之雌雄，亦似君之君臣乎？鲁穆公薨，子贡公奋立。韩文侯薨，子哀侯立。26年乙巳，公元前376年，王崩，子烈王喜立。魏、韩、赵共废晋景公为家人而分其地。烈王元年丙午，公元前375年，日有食之。韩灭郑，因喜都之。赵敬侯薨，子成侯种立。3年戊申，公元前373年，燕败齐师于临湖。鲁伐齐，入阳关。魏伐齐，至柏陵。燕西公薨，子桓公立。宋休公薨，子毕公立。魏慎公薨，子生公训立。4年己酉，公元前372年，赵伐魏，取都比73。魏败赵师于北列。5年庚戌，公元前371年，魏伐楚，取鲁阳。韩延遂是哀侯，国人立其子义侯。初，哀侯以韩伟为相而爱延遂，2人甚相害也。 延遂令人赐韩伟于朝，为走哀侯，哀侯报之。人赐韩伟，兼及哀侯。魏武侯薨，不立太子，子婴与宫中缓争立，国内乱。6年辛亥，公元前370年，齐威王来朝。是时周氏微弱，诸侯莫朝，而其独朝之，天下以此一贤威王。赵伐齐，至卷。魏败赵失于淮。齐威王召集莫大夫，与之曰：自子之居即莫也，毁言日至。然无使人事疾。莫田野辟，人民给，官无事，东方已明。世子不是无左右以求助也。封之万驾。赵阿大夫，与之曰：自子守阿，欲言日至。无使人事阿，田野不辟，人民贫馁。昔日赵公眷，子不救，未取薛陵，子不知。世子后必是无左右以求御也。是日，烹阿大夫及左右常御者。于是群臣悚惧，莫敢试诈，误尽其情。齐国大治，强于天下。楚肃王薨，无子，立其弟良夫，是为宣王。宋辟公薨，子梯成立。7年壬子，公元前369年，日有食之。王崩，帝贬立，是为显王。魏大夫王错出奔韩。公孙齐谓韩义侯曰：魏乱，可取也。义侯乃与赵成侯合兵伐魏，战于卓泽，大破之，遂为魏。成侯曰：杀婴，立功中缓，割地耳。退，我2国之利也。义侯曰：不可。杀魏君，暴也；割地而退，贪也。不如2分之。魏分为2，不强于宋、魏，则我中无魏患矣。赵人不听。义侯不悦，以其兵业去。赵成侯亦去。应遂杀公中缓而立，是为惠王。太史公曰：魏惠王之所以身不死，国不分者，2国之谋不合也。若从一家之谋，未必分矣。故曰：军中无世子，其国可破也。此为播放列表合集系列视频之一，同款电子书。Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. More videos available in the playlist collections. Matching ebook included. If you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know. 谢谢您点赞、订阅、关注，欢迎您的雅正。